Rick, how you doing, man?
Doing great, Keith.
Good, man. Good.
Great
I thought
to see
we'd
you.
do like a quick little talk here about one more about acceptance.
Okay, great.
Because people hear us talk about acceptance all the time, and oftentimes life shows up in such an undesirable way. Or people do, they mean like, so am I supposed to sit here and do nothing? And so we just kind of wanted to define acceptance a little bit clearer for people.
Okay.
And so acceptance doesn't mean not fighting the problem. It means stopping the fight with yourself.
Oh man, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful way to put it.
Good. So tell the audience what that means to you.
Well, a couple of things. One is that acceptance is not surrender. It doesn't mean giving up. What acceptance is it's an acknowledgement within yourself that you're not the center of the universe. That's all it means. It means that you're holding space for things to happen, and your own internal gyroscope about being peaceful and being at heart a happy person and a grateful person and a compassionate person has nothing to do with the externals. We can accept what's going on. We can want to change things and move toward changing them. But at the end of the day, there's a gyroscope in our heart and soul which remains inviolate. It's steady and it's strong.
Oh, I completely agree. And I look at some people that have done this magnificently during the course of history. And the first person that comes to mind to me is Gandhi.
Oh, yes.
You know,
yes.
Gandhi did not accept, he totally accepted the way that things were in his country of India, while he peacefully worked to make them better. You know, you look at Mandela, you look at King. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Look at these people. I mean, another personal favorite of mine is Eleanor Roosevelt, you know, and some of the things that she did here in our country. Regarding the rights of Native Americans, regarding the rights of African American people and women and other people that were disadvantaged, people that were without jobs, without homes. She was a quiet, silent, forceful person behind FDR to get a lot of things done.
So true.
So, you know, so there's an acceptance of what is, and while you work to change things, you know. Can you give an example of how you've done that in your own life?
Sure, several things. Excuse me. I think one of the hardest things that I had to deal with was when I first started out as a lawyer. I just didn't feel like I had the ability to do what other lawyers were doing. I lost my first first three cases actually when I tried in court, and I thought I wasn't very good at it. So I had a choice. I thought, okay, maybe what I should do is just not try to be a trial lawyer, just go back to doing something that involves contracts. I was thinking maybe the way to change myself might be an alternative to that, which would be acting out. I was thinking, well, maybe I need to be this big offensive guy who does these outrageous things in court, and then that will help me. But what I realized was that the way to change myself was to realize that none of those things which were inauthentic outside of myself were going to work. And I didn't want to do anything that was going to be against my core values. And so what I decided on doing was just to be myself and just try to work through it. This is not on the level of MLK, obviously, or Gandhi or Eleanor Roosevelt, but the idea is I was fighting myself in an area where I didn't need to do the fighting. If I would just accept that I was young and that I didn't have enough experience to win, and that's eventually what I did, that showed me the way out.
So there's a ton of suffering that you experienced prior to accepting that.
Totally, yeah,
Right.
very much. Well, and part of the suffering had to do with thinking that there was something else out there that I needed to do, like something that was outside of who I was, that I needed to do to get it done, when that wasn't true. You know, I just accepted that this was a tough situation, and I had to work through it in a way that did not give up, but kept my, again, gyroscope, me, but work through it in a way where I could make some progress, however that looked.
Yeah, man, that's great. I've had quite a few examples of instances in which I didn't accept the situation. I said I did, but here's how I know I didn't. I was suffering inside. So that's a key to when you know you haven't fully accepted the situation as it is. And again, that doesn't mean not being resilient. It doesn't mean you give up. It doesn't mean any of that. It's just you find this peacefulness. It's accepting the situation exactly as it is.
Yeah.
And when you do,
Exactly as it
that
is.
it creates an opening for you to let consciousness flow in, and then there's action to be taken. Then it's intelligent action. It's not fueled by ego. And that's what happened to me several times. I remember before when I would react to something that was outside of me, the stock market, when I was a financial planner, and I'd be upset about the market. It's if little old me would have any kind of effect on the market. Are you kidding me? But I would get worked up and riled up and all those things. But not only there, political things would happen that I would feel were not just, in the place I was living. And I would be upset and ranting and raving about, how the mayor or the governor or the president isn't doing what I think they should be doing. And there was just a ton of suffering. When I was over in the Marine Corps, over in Iraq, I really thought there was a completely different way we should be going about things. Nobody asked me, but I had opinions about how it should go. And again, I had no ability to change any of it, but I was suffering. And so what I realized is that the fight is always occurring in one place, and that's within yourself. And so once I realized that if I'm experiencing any kind of suffering, then the fight is within.
So true.
And I just immediately started to be like, so it's only within that I have any kind of control. And so let me focus all my energy on calming this down in here. And that's where I started to place my energy. And so I stopped fighting with myself after accepting the situation. And you know what? Stuff worked out. It all worked out.
I think that's a wonderful, wonderful paragraph or two on what to do exactly. The idea is that you have a personal choice, only one major thing, and that's how you're going to accept whatever the externals are that are sent your way. The externals are what you have to accept as existing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the external is the fact that we're sitting here and there are lights and air and you and I. That's one set of circumstances, but there's also poverty and twisted people and violence and killing and rape. And it's not that you like that or you put up with it, but you have a way of looking at life where those circumstances are out there. You accept them. You can't say, I can't accept this, or that offends me. That's one of the things that really grinds me. People say, this offends me. Anything in life that exists, how can you be offended? I mean, it's there, right? It's there. It exists in the world.
And it's as if you being offended or your non-acceptance changes.
Yeah, like I'm outraged, therefore the world must change.
It isn't.
Now, the outrage may be legitimate. I
Right.
mean, to see a kid raped or something, not see it, but hear about it or whatever. I mean, that's legitimate outrage. But the reality is that exists. So why waste your time being outraged? Either change it, or have an adjustment within yourself that you're not going to go off the deep end. You're going to center and continue to not choose this emotional fly off the handle crap that gets nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, when I was growing up, with my stepfather in that situation, and for many years, even after the physical abuse had ended, and I can only speak for myself, so everyone else out there who's experienced any kind of abuse, it's important that you work with professionals to help you get through that if that's necessary. I can only speak for me, but when I was experiencing that, that was real. But long after I moved on, 20, 30 years removed, I still wasn't in a place of acceptance. So I was continuing to relive that suffering.
Wow.
So my stepfather was no longer in front of me, but I was fighting as if he was. But he's physically not here. So where was the fight? Within.
Totally.
But once I accepted that happened, my stepfather was on his own journey. Me accepting that doesn't, remove him being culpable or responsible for his actions. I'm no longer responsible. I was never responsible, but I'm certainly not responsible now for anything that he has coming for him. that's karmic.
That's
You
right.
know?
That's way above your pay grade.
It's got nothing to do with
This is all you got.
That's all I got. This is
All
all I
you got.
got.
That's all I got to work with.
And so what was the next step for me? In order to be fully free of the fight within, I accepted it, and then I chose I would be peaceful. What was the key to that? Was accepting my stepfather just the way he is.
That's right. Yeah, so the acceptance isn't saying that I like my stepfather's abuse. It's I accept that those circumstances happen. Now,
Yep.
what choice am I going to make about it? Okay, lessons to be learned. I can prepare for something a little bit better. I can realize that I'm capable of existing at a high level, even despite that kind of abuse. Whatever those lessons are, and you can spin them all out. Those are great things that come to you by virtue of dealing with an external circumstance that you don't fight, you accept, but you deal with.
Right, exactly. And they show up in all different forms. A lot of people that I know have been divorced for years, and they're still not over it.
You're still mad.
They're still mad and upset, and I'm just like, accept it, and give your former partner some space and some grace and everything else, man, and stop fighting within, because if that relationship is over, the fight is no longer out there. It never was.
Mm-hmm.
It's all within.
Here's another thing that I think is important about acceptance, and that is that when you fight acceptance, when you're always arguing with circumstance or your life pattern or whatever bad things that you think happened to you that shouldn't have, that creates the opportunity for your ego to create a story about who you are.
And an identity.
An identity, and that ego becomes attached to it. I was the one who was above the board, who supported my family, and yet I was the victim of the most horrible treachery by a woman who murdered our relationship by sleeping with another man in my bed. I mean, there's a story, right?
Yeah, right. You create this narrative.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Or my significant other left with someone else, ran off with someone else.
Yeah, and that's your story. That becomes your life story. So you see everything through the lens of that story. Well, that doesn't leave any space for creating anything new in your life. You could be the person who's going to be the most generous philanthropist, but you can't do it because you have this story about being betrayed and you don't trust and you don't want to give. See the point? That what I'm getting at is that story gets in the way of who you really want to be.
Exactly, and the story lies everywhere. It could be someone who's in a relationship and they're like, my significant other does everything for everybody else, or my significant other only does things for themselves. They don't show me any attention, or they don't thank me, ask me how my day was, and all this stuff that you're living with, and the fight is not with your significant other. The fight is with you.
Well, and in that circumstance, you also remember you don't have to accept something that somebody gives you without making an attempt to change it.
Right.
For example, if you're with a significant other and they never ask you about your day, you may say, "Baby, aren't you interested in what's going on in my life? I mean, do we love each other? Is this something that I feel like you're not really interested in me." So you bring it up, you talk about it, you communicate.
Yeah, and hopefully make an agreement that, hey, we'll ask each other about each other's day when we see each other for the first half an hour of coming back together.
Yeah. So my point, and I think you agree with me on this, is the idea that there's an example of something that can be changed simply by communication, but rape and murder down the street can't be. So that's something that you just have to accept as a circumstance that exists in the world. Not accept that it's okay, not accept that you're not offended by it, but accept that that circumstance exists. You may hate it, but it exists. Okay, good. So now you got that. The next step is, what's my attitude toward it? Okay, you can work to change like Gandhi and MLK and Eleanor Roosevelt, or you can at least manage your own emotions and not get so involved in it that it takes over and creates a story for you about who you are in the world and how bad things are. That is a dead end.
Yeah, and just be really clear, like those big concepts and things that happen outside of you in the world that Rick just mentioned. It's really important that, there are several things that I don't care for, that are undesirable to me, but I accept it, and I certainly don't complain about it anymore. And if there's action, if I'm that passionate about it, then I'm gonna take action about it. And if I'm not, then I just choose to stay in a space of acceptance. When it comes to someone else outside of you, outside of yourself, whether it's your the person you work with, or someone who you report to, or your significant other, just be really clear on this one point that we're making when it comes to the fight. The fight is always, always within. There are no external enemies. I went to this workshop one time.
That's a great line. There are no
external enemies.
That's a great line.
I went to this workshop, and this person was coming up to the front to share with the audience while somebody was coaching him. And she was talking about how her husband was, he expected her to do everything, and he won't do the simplest things that she asked him to do. I mean, just really, really small things. He just will not do them. And he asked for an example, it's like the toilet seat. And she was like, he won't let down the toilet seat. How inconsiderate could he be? Is he that he always, no matter how often I ask him, he always leaves the toilet seat up all the time. And the guy who's leading this conference says, it's not about the toilet seat. She's like, no, it's about the toilet seat. He's disrespectful. I do everything around this house. Like, she's created this identity narrative that she's continuing to identify with. And it's becoming stronger and stronger. And it's like, hey, you can accept that your husband doesn't let down toilet seats. And that'd be it. But no, she's keep doing it. And so he keeps telling her, like, it's not about the toilet seat. It's not about the toilet seat. And he's like, how can you tell me it's not about the toilet seat? And he goes, well, if it was simply about the toilet seat, you let it down. Problem solved. But no, it's not the toilet seat.
He doesn't love me. He doesn't respect me. He doesn't listen to me. That's what.
It's all this narrative.
All of that stuff.
That creates an other outside of it. Like, here you are, and there's this other. And this other becomes this external enemy in that space. And so what I have chosen to do in my life is I remind myself, anytime my ego comes up, there are no external enemies. There are no external enemies.
And that leads us to another great principle of Stoicism that's so important, which is that it does not matter what the externals are, no matter what. You always have the choice about how you want to control your own life and your own attitude toward them. Most people don't operate on a core value gyroscope, 10,000 foot view. I'm going to look at how all of this manifests itself and be straight and do what I want to do in terms of keeping my heart compassionate and full and my soul open and vulnerable. And that's where the juice is, by the way. That's what you want to do. I know we'll have another show on that, but that's really where the advantages come to you. Instead, they would rather judge. And the problem that you get into, again, is back to what Keith said, is that constant judging and that constant reaction with emotion is your fight within that is dysfunctional. That'll lead nowhere except to short-term unhappiness.
Oh, it'll tear you down. I mean, before we go, it may be hard to see it in yourself, because I know for me, it was really hard to see it in myself. We're as ego entities, it's much easier for us to see the faults in other people. But look at people that you know or have known who've created this narrative to where they're fighting life, situations, other people, and look at, they've been doing it for decades. Like, I mean, they could be older, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years, and all their life has been filled with that kind of suffering, going through life, not accepting what is. Everything is a consistent complaint. It is a constant dislike and disdain for what already is, for people showing up a certain way. Look at that. Is that how you want to live? That's what non-acceptance looks like.
And there's no space for anything else. No. That's what you want to do, is to create space for a joyful, compassionate, full heart, full, rich life. You can't do that if it's full with this goofball story that you're a victim, or that all of the world is crap, and that, things will never change. All of that stuff is a dead end. You're not going to get anywhere with that.
And life will show you things every single day for you to practice acceptance.
That's right.
You know what? It's raining outside and you forgot your umbrella. Yep, That's it. You know what? You got a flat tire on the freeway, dark at night. Yep, acceptance. Someone cuts you off, acceptance. You get fired, like, all these are opportunities. The situation shows up a certain way, people show up a certain way. Don't fight with life, don't fight with them. It's futile. accept.
And here's one other thing that's kind of cool about this too. If you realize a pattern that you're always upset about a certain thing, like me with traffic, or me infuriated about other people, and that helps me feel superior to them. If you see that pattern in yourself, then you have to realize that's what I have to work on. So every time it shows up, you say, it's here again, good.
That's the practice.
Here I am, my ego is trying to tell me that I'm better than other people. Great, thanks for the tip. I'm getting out of that because I know that leads to suffering and unhappiness. But you have to monitor that, and you have to be open to being willing to change that. Because once you get rid of that, then it opens up space for enjoying the sunset and the buddy and all of the rest. Yeah.
Man, Rick, thanks, man.
I love you, buddy.
I love you too, man.
Great show. I like that one.
All right, me too.
I'm gonna look at this one again.
Me too.